It's happening. Adults across the country can buy cannabis. People have a lot of questions, so I invited some friends over to talk about it. Joining me today is Ashley Athill, a cannabis educator.
There's opportunities for education, but in different outlets.
David Hyde, a cannabis security advisor.
There needs to be education along with that for the new consumers.
And Matt Mernagh, cannabis activist and author.
We've done a lot of research on this area.
I'm Chuck Rifici, and we're talking the biz. THC is the main psychoactive component in cannabis. Should we be restricting the amount of THC in products?
As a cannabis connoisseur, absolutely not. I think that when it comes to flower, at least, we should have a full range of THC spectrum, including other cannabinoid spectrum in the plant. It is beneficial for different ailments, for different people, and I don't think that there should be any restriction at all.
Definitely no restrictions. It's just silly that we think that there should be. I think people should have proper labeling so they know, hey, this is high THC product. We know on the medical side that people are buying based on THC percentages. These percentages are new to Canadians, so we need labeling on it. And I think there's more to cannabis than THC. There's the entourage effect, there's other cannabinoids at play. And then there's people with high tolerance levels like myself that have to smoke 5 grams a day. Well, if we had a higher THC, that means we're just smoking less than the 5 grams, right? We would use less medicine.
Let me play devil's advocate very mildly. It's not that I'm against high THC levels, but I think as we look at now the normalization path that we've been discussing, you know, many people who are coming into the recreational market have experience with cannabis and can make their own choices with respect to their own tolerance level and choosing products that give them what they need out of it. But some people can't. And I think that there needs to be education for the new consumers, you know, because there are going to be new consumers, whether it's consumers for natural health products, consumers that are dealing with certain pains and ills that fall short of prescription. And many of them understand THC and what's good for them, but some of them don't.
I mean, education seems to come into everything because most or a lot of Canadians and even policymakers are somewhat ignorant on these effects. But we hear something a lot from people that are against legalization on how in the 60s or 70s, the pot that your parents or grandparents smoked was much lower THC percentage, and how with prohibition over time has gotten much stronger and somehow it's more dangerous. I mean, is that true?
We've done a lot of research on this area. A tremendous amount from all the way back to the 60s. One, we have to remember testing did not stay consistent from that period. So it's hard to make that statement right out of the gate.
But on the testing side, I mean, it has to do with they weren't measuring, the THC percentage that's on the product is really a combination of THC in different forms. And so I guess previously they were just measuring one of those components and really missing half the measurement, right, is what you're saying. But I mean, are there not health risks associated with incredibly high concentrations of THC with heavy use? Yes, I would agree with you, and just kind of some of those boundaries and guidelines, because I have personally seen people go into psychosis by using extremely high levels of THC. And I honestly would not want anybody to go through that. I don't believe it is something that actually creates the psychosis. I believe it's already set inside of you, but it just activates it. But that being said, that's where that education piece needs to be put in.
I think the issues around also the packaging now, how the government intends to do it, is people aren't getting much information. Right. They're not getting the terpene profile on the package. They're not getting all the things that go into the entourage effect. Yeah, because I mean, terpenes, the essential oils and the kind of the aroma and taste. Yeah, a lot of people believe that in a sense, the flavor of the cannabis actually affects the high, if you will, right? Right, it modulates, and many of us believe that it does, like myself, believe in the entourage effect and that it modulates. Terpenes modulate the cannabinoids and how they absorb into our brain.
Well, I guess, it really, there's almost two questions here. There's the high concentrations of THC. And I think we probably agree that, with prohibition of alcohol, nobody was selling beer during alcohol prohibition. You sell very high potency. So legalization should generally drive down percentages of THC, but dosing really is kind of the other issue. Do you think You know, I think we're looking at 10 milligrams is typically a dose of THC that you find in a capsule or a chocolate bar in Colorado, and we're gonna have similar rules here. I mean, is that appropriate?
I think there needs to be something. I mean, we've seen some concerns about edibles and the inability to gauge just how quick that's going to impact people, and I think that's an appropriate venue to have some type of dosing restrictions.
I mean, it takes a long time for you to feel the effects. You might have that second piece of chocolate before you realize you've already had enough.
Yeah, because your body wants the chocolate, but maybe it doesn't need the cannabis.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't always taste the cannabis.
Have other cookies beside you.
Yes. And what about things like, vape pens, not legal today under the, as we get with legalization, but very popular in the gray markets, very popular in other places like Colorado. And that's a very incredibly high concentration of THC in an oil format. Is that a good or a bad thing?
I think it's a good thing, but I think also educating those individuals who want to use those vape pens in just maybe microdosing.
I think definitely as a patient I could use a vape pen. Especially when I'm out in public, it's a little less than smoking a joint. I find it medicates me better. We need to allow patients to have access to cannabis in all its forms. Because remember, at the end of the day, people see the big bud and they think that's what we're in smoking, that's what we're getting medicine from, but it's not. It's the little
trichomes.
Right, it's like a piece, like the bud's the ignition source to get to this little tiny trichome head that actually contains our medicine. When we create it in our vape pen, we're simply just taking out all that leafy matter and taking just all the trichome and we're putting it into an oil. And then you just hit it small or large, it depends on you. And I think there's usage there for it.
Absolutely, like I work with seniors and some of them are open to just rolling a joint and having a good time. But a lot of them are very cautious and they want to feel safe and secure in actually using the product. And through these oils, we'll attract them to a whole different array of different products. So capping the THC, I think it's not my personal suggestion, but I could see the benefit of it for newbies at least.
Well, I guess we seem to be in agreement that if we were writing policy, we don't need a cap on THC percentages, but there's going to be much downside that we discussed. Who gets harmed if we end up with a very, like a 10% max THC cap? I mean, is that a problem?
People with chronic pain.
Oh yeah, people with chronic pain.
People with
harmed.
PTSD.
And then recreational cannabis enthusiasts. The enthusiast market that has brought cannabis policy this far have really been shut out. They would continue to feel even more shut out if they said you're not going to get access to the high THC products that you've gotten used to.
Which will in turn move them back into that gray black market, right?
And that's the counter argument in Colorado when this has come up in other states in the US where they said, looked at, do we put a cap? And often, always so far from my knowledge, have said no. And that's the main reason, because it's thought that what we'll do is drive a lot of people back to the black market.
I think inclusion is just really the conversation here. And making sure that the people who have a low tolerance all the way to the extremely high tolerance are included in this space. And yeah, there might have to be some steps that the government has to take to include each and every one. But again, that just kind of falls into that education piece and understanding. And when I talk to people, I always say, listen, you need to listen to yourself. You need to listen to your body, right? And you need to take accountability for your health. If you know that it's too much for you, it's okay just to scale back a bit. It's not going to be of any detriment. I've noticed that people, especially younger people, they tend to just overkill. And I don't know, it just doesn't seem necessary. Yeah. Exactly.
But I think your body can only absorb so much THC and cannabinoids anyways at some point, right? I mean, like, I think there's a
limit. Yeah.
There's a limit. And people need to learn their limits. I mean, and you talk about this, we have the class in our class, so at the end of the class, we'll pass around a joint, and we have people that come in with very low to no tolerance level, that just the hot box of a room of a couple joints going around is plenty for them. And you're like, you're gonna grow cannabis? I am so proud of you. You have such a low tolerance and you're gonna grow cannabis.
They're determined.
Right? We've really cleared the smoke on this topic. Thanks for coming today.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thanks,
Thanks
Chuck.
a lot, Chuck. It's been great to be here.